Over our worried hours, you've been watching. Though we've been lonely, you've always been near. And over our weary hands, you've been holding. Though we've been slipping, your grip holds us here. Hold us, Jesus, here with your words. Hold us, Jesus, anchor our souls. Hold us, Jesus, here in the one hope we've known. Lord, where else shall we go? Over my worried hours, you've been watching. Though I've been lonely, you've always been near. And over my weary hands, you've been holding. Though I keep slipping, your grip holds me here. Hold me, Jesus, here with your words of life. Hold me, Jesus, anchor my soul. Hold me, Jesus, here in the one hope I know. Lord, where else shall I go? Hold us, Jesus, you have the words of life. Hold us, Jesus, anchor our souls. Hold us, Jesus, here in the one hope we've known. Lord, where else shall we go? Lord, where else shall we go? Lord, where else can we go? Lord, where else would we go? I'm here with you, where nothing else can harm me. Here with you, when no one else could mend. You have found a sinner, I have found a friend, dying just to have me here with you. And here with you, I know I'm back where I've been wanted. Here with you, I'm back where I belong. You have found a loner, and I have found a home. Finally I fit in here with you. Finally I feel good here with you. Finally I find my peace with you. We ask, we seek. We knock. Help us, Jesus. Hold us, Jesus. Thank you. Good morning, dear hearts. Wherever you are, you're with Him. He's with you. In Him we live and move and have our being. And as we move here in John's Gospel, John chapter 20, as we come to the close of this last chapter, and it is the last chapter, it's the close of John's story. There is another chapter. There's always another chapter. 21, the next chapter, it's an appendix. It's put on for another purpose. We'll get to that if we get to that, when we get to it. But the story John tells, the story John began in the beginning was the Word, now ends with my Lord and my God. It starts with the Word was God. It ends with my God. Was God my God? A man saying, my God, and seeing him who is God. That's the story. That's the big picture. That's how John ends his story. These words of highest faith, my Lord and my God, these words of highest faith coming out from the one with the deepest doubt. And what a picture it paints. What a glorious picture. This last section of chapter 20, it's not the story of Thomas. Sometimes I've seen it that way. But as always, it's the story of Jesus reflected upon Thomas, even as the story of Jesus is being written and reflected into each of our lives. But it's the story of the Good Shepherd, the same Good Shepherd who loves and cares for each of us. It's the story of the Good Shepherd going after the lost sheep. For to be alone, as Thomas was, alone in his doubts perhaps, but still alone, is to be lost in a way that the Lord doesn't want us to stay there or to be there. And Jesus goes forth here and he helps the one who would have always been the hardest to take in. There's always that sheep that's not, don't say stubborn. Say intelligent. In the sense that I have to see for myself. No one can see for me. And I may love all my friends that would love to help and support, but in the end, I need the support of my God. And I'd love to believe, but in order to believe, I have to see. So it felt for Thomas. He says, I'm not going to be taken in. There's so many ways in which we can be hurt. So many ways in which we can do damage to ourselves and to others. But Jesus is the great healer. And Thomas wanted Jesus. No one else would do. And Jesus had assured all the disciples there at the beginning, there in the first chapter, he said to all of them, you shall see, you shall see, you shall see, you shall see. That was the story we saw from the first chapter. And so now, here, Thomas, he needs to see too. It says there in verse 24 that Thomas is called the twin, and I'll call him mine, in the sense that when I see him, I see myself. He's my doppelganger in doubt. He's someone who I say, okay, I can relate to this. Thank you, Jesus. This story helps me. It says that Thomas had not been there earlier, the parts we've looked at already. And the other disciples, verse 25, were saying to him, we have seen the Lord. But he said to them, unless I shall see in his hands the imprint of the nails, and put my finger into the place of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. There's a guy who believes that he knows himself. And what everyone else knows and what everyone else sees and says, ultimately, I know that I've got to know. I've got to see it for myself. He's somebody who has known great hope in Jesus. And he's someone who's experienced great hurt because of Jesus. At least that's how he saw it. I hoped in him. I've been hurt because of what's happened to him. I don't want to be hopeful. I don't want to be hurting. Not that way. Not ever again. And so he refused to believe just to belong. Okay, you can be part of the group if you just believe. No, I will not. I'm not stubborn. There's wisdom. I won't believe just to belong. I need to see for myself. I need to know in some way for myself. He's not wrong in that. Great wisdom in that. And so it says in verse 26 that after 8 days again, his disciples were inside, Thomas with them this time. Jesus came, the doors having been shut. And he stood now in their midst, and he said, Shalom. Shalom, peace be with all of you. And then specifically to Thomas, he said, reach here your finger and see my hands. And reach here your hand and put it into my side. And be not unbelieving, but believing. He says here, you said what you thought you needed to believe. I want you to believe. Here. For you today, what do you need to be able to believe? What do you need to be hopeful? To be happy again? To have some sense of life? What do you need? Whatever it is, Jesus would give it. First, it would be wise if we asked. Call the words of Thomas to the others saying, unless. Call it just telling them what he believes he needs, or call it prayer, but either way, Jesus hears. It's good to know that he hears and he cares, and you can ask him, and you can say, I believe that this is what I need. I believe that that's what I need. And whatever it may be, ask, seek, knock. You never know. He may give you exactly what you said you needed. Or he may not, because it wouldn't help the way you thought it would. But either way, he hears and he knows and he cares. And the thing we need more than all things is to know that he sees and he knows and he cares. And sometimes I think I know what I need. And sometimes I think I know what I know. Other times I don't know. But Jesus, he would give. And to Thomas, he did give. He said, here, go ahead. If this is what you need. And then Thomas answered. Thomas answered that invitation with these words. He said, my Lord and my God. My Lord and my God. This story that, the story that John begins with, the Word was God. Thomas now answers, and he is my God. The Word was God. The Lord, my God. That's the answer. That's the completion. It's come around. As we all one day, we're going to come around. Sooner or later. Sometimes we make it a whole lot later than it could have been, but the fact is that the timeless one is at work always to redeem and to reconcile and to take us along our own life's journey, which we each have to take alone in some sense. We're together once in a while, but ultimately we're all of us alone, all together alone, but with him. He's the one who's always with us. And the story that begins with the beginning was God. Now, for Thomas, this is my God. All the hands of the clock, the hour, the minute, the second, all the hands of the clock, they make their long journey round, each in their own time, each in their own way. And Sometimes they're together passing for a moment. Sometimes they're so far apart, those hands pointing in such opposite directions. But ultimately they all come back together again. As it was in the beginning. They all come back. We all come back together again as though there was no time at all. And what's different after these long journeys that we each take is that now all together again, as it was in the beginning, where love reigned. Once again with him, we have our own stories. But in the passing story, in the passage of time, the lives that we're living right now, it's learning that he is with us through all of the course of our journey. And our job isn't to try to hurry things up or even make things right. It's to learn something along the way. And for Thomas, he's learned the greatest lesson. This is my God. The wounded one, the one who I saw suffer, the one who cried out in such agony and pain. This is my God. For Thomas, the circuit was completed, not by the touch of his hand. Jesus offered, but Thomas, these words come flying out from his mouth. He didn't have to reach out. It was not necessary. It wasn't the touch of his hand as he supposed to enable him to really believe. It was the touch of his heart, and it was Jesus, of course, doing the touching. And that's the way it always is. It is. We have all these ideas of what it will take. This is what it will take to make me believe. This is what it'll take to make me happy. This is what it'll take to heal me. This is what it'll take to... And we have these ideas of what it will take to be happy again. And we think that we can put our finger on it. And that's what it'll take. And we think we can touch the prescription and say, this is how it can be fixed. And here's the problem. And yet the fact is that it's nothing that we can put our finger on. It's nothing that we can lay hold of with our hands or even lay hold of with our eyes. It's none of those things. That we may think it'll take that, but in fact, happiness happens here. It takes place in the heart. Like the kingdom itself, the kingdom of heaven is within you. That's where it happens. And Jesus touched his heart. Jesus touched Thomas at the deepest level, and now Thomas believed. Now there was that transformation. And you know, whenever the love of your Creator, the love of your Lord and your God, whenever he touches your heart, only he can do that. But as he does it, when he does it, however he does it, when you know for that moment, he cares for me, he loves me, he's concerned about me, in that moment, that is more real than anything that we can touch, anything we can lay our eyes or hands on. That's more real than anything we can put under a microscope or into a test tube or whatever else we call tangible and solid. No. The realities, the deepest realities happen at the heart level. When you know that without an understanding of the details, I can with all of my heart lean on him who loves me. He loves me. He cares for me. And that's the transaction that takes place between Thomas and Jesus. The one that I pray would happen between you and Jesus. Every day. In your need. God knows that's what I need. It's how I live. To be living is believing. And believing that I'm living. And I know that I'm living because I'm believing. And if I have doubts, which I'm not doing much thinking if I don't have doubts. I have so many doubts. And worries and fears and all of these things, but I know there's someone who can help me with that. And I ask, because he knows. He's been through it all. He knows. And I can talk to him. And there's the security. We have so many things in this world. We call them assets. We call them securities. We put them away. We say, okay, things are solid because I have this portfolio. And yet, whatever we can lay our eyes on, whatever we can lay our hands on, all the tangible things, all the securities, all the things, you know that even though you can grasp it, it slips through your fingers. With the passage of time, of course it does. We all know that. There has to be a better bank. There has to be a more secure security. And of course there is. It's not what the eyes see. It's not what the hands can hold. It's what happens here in the heart. More than the memory banks, because those fade. The banks of the heart, where we just receive the sense. It may seem that it's only passing, but that precious moment, I know he cares for me. He loves me not because I'm better than, maybe I'm the least of, but that's who he is. That's his nature. That's his nature. If I didn't believe, if there wasn't one who I could say, my Lord and my God, who loves you and leaves nobody out in his love. If I thought that this God that I looked to left somebody out, didn't love, didn't care, he would be a far lesser God than the one I'm looking for. The one I'm looking for and the one I've found, he is love. You're not left out. And if you feel left out, you belong, because we all do. He did. He felt left out. He felt forsaken. That's part of life. It feels like hell, but we're headed toward heaven, and heaven happens in here because life goes on. He went through it. He raised it up, and he sang to us, lift up your eyes. Lift up your hopes. And so we see it happening here for Thomas. And I pray that it happens for you. Whatever we lay our hands on, Thomas thought if I could touch it, but you know what? Security is never in our hands. Security are in his hands, the nail-pierced hands, the hands of him who knew what it was to be so deeply hurt by those he so deeply loved. It's all in his hands, and you know what? He can handle it, and he'll help you. Just as he came to help Thomas, his heart is to help you. I hope you can hear that from him. From him. I hope you can hear that. And Jesus said to him, because you've seen me, have you believed? Blessed are those who did not see and yet believed. You know, in that first part of the phrase, because you have seen me, have you believed? Or because you have seen me, you have believed. What's the tone of those words? How do you hear those words? I can't know how Thomas heard them, but you know, we're left with wondering. We're left with thinking that we know. What's the tone of the words? Jesus angry? What's the inflection point? We can't even know the punctuation because we weren't given that. And it's good that we don't know, because there's something deeper in terms of how you hear. Even as you read the Bible, how do you hear the Bible? And I can only say for myself, I read no rebuke in that. Why would I? Jesus himself had promised from the first chapter, from the beginning of their journey, you will see, you will see, you will see. And so now for Thomas to tell the others, look, whatever you tell me, that's fine, but I have to see for myself. Why would that be wrong? I read no rebuke into that. I find that we often read so many tones and intonations of rebuke and judgment and all this between the lines. And then as we berate ourselves and then berate others in Jesus' name, and we say, Jesus said, when in fact, did Jesus really say that? Or is that just the way you hear it? For myself, I hear someone who says, come to me if you're weary and heavy laden. I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn of me. I'm meek, I'm lowly in heart. You'll find rest for your soul. My yoke is easy, my load is light. I hear someone who says, I judge no one. I didn't come that the world would be judged. I came that people would be saved. And he goes forth to the ones who are the hardest to take in. It doesn't say, boy, you're hard for me to handle. It's no, you apparently need even more. Whatever you need, I'll give it. I'll help you. I'll come alongside you. That's how I read it. That's who I believe in. And then secondly, he said, blessed are those who did not see and do not see. Blessed are they who don't see and yet have believed. Far from a rebuke in the second sentence, it's a blessing. It's a beatitude. He's saying there's a greater blessing. Thomas, you're one of the 12. The 12 I promised you would see. Now you have seen. But there's another blessing for those that are not part of the foundation. They're not part of the first 12. That happened once, but I don't envy them. Jesus says here that there's a greater blessing for the billions of souls, for the billions who have come afterwards and continue to come afterward. For all of us who didn't get to see or touch or handle or sit with Jesus the way Thomas and the others did, he's saying there's something even better for us. This is the last beatitude in the Gospels. The last of those beatitudes, those words that say, happy are. And speaking of a happiness that, who would have thought that a river could flow out of the desert? And yet that's the nature of the Beatitudes, like rivers that flow out of the desert, like waters that spring up from the darkest and lowest depths. And how do they do that? But there's a spring of life. Waters of life came right out of the rock. Out of the hardest places, a river came out. Blessings, happiness. Blessed are the poor. And blessed are the poor in spirit. Happy are the poor. Happy are the poor in spirit. Happy are those who mourn and who are meek and who are merciful. Happy are those who are hungering and who are thirsting. And yes, even happy are those who are persecuted. Not because of those things, but in spite of all those low places and hard places, happy are they because ultimately, in every case, they have the kingdom. The kingdom is happening here. It can, it will, it does. He says this is the believing, and blessed are those who believe that. He says, happy are those who've not seen, and yet they believe. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? Don't fake it. Don't say, yes, I do, when you don't. But it's true. There is a happiness that he has for you. There is a blessing that he has for you. Ask him. Seek. Knock. And then listen to your own life and wait for the timing in which he works in your life. I can only say for myself, I've seen and I've believed. And I still doubt and I still worry. But I've seen and I've believed. Not with my eyes or hands, not with my physical ears, but in my heart, I believe that he loves me and cares for me. And that it was my God who went through those worst of times and hardest of times and darkest of times. And it doesn't mean I understand his plan. I just know that he plans to help me. He plans to do whatever it takes. I may often think this is what it'll take. And you know what? If that's what it would take, he would give it. He holds nothing back. But he gives the best. And he will give the best. And then the final words, the conclusion of John's Gospel. Many other signs, therefore, Jesus also performed in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these have been written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. This is the end of John's story, but it's the beginning of every other lovely story that's been written and is being written. The stories that are being lived and loved and written and read and shared are our very lives. The story of Jesus, he who was in the beginning, as we now see that story, he's the author and the finisher. He's the one at work with us. In him we live and move and have our being. He's at work within us to want to do and to do his good pleasure. And as far as stories go and books go, this whole universe, this whole expanding universe is a vast library. And our lives are the books being written, at least some of the books. And we have a choice every day. What am I going to do with this page? Can't go back and edit. Sometimes wish we could. But you know what? The more wonderful thing is that as the stories go on, as the chapters proceed, he heals and he redeems and he restores and he somehow makes sense of, not by going out and redacting and erasing and making all of that go away. No, he somehow works it all together for good. I don't know how. But I believe that. These signs are for us who have not yet seen, and one day we will, of course. With my resurrected eyes, I'll see him. But until then, I believe in Thomas and John and all those who had that first tangible, but I have something better. And these signs are for us. To be doubting is to be human. To be doubting is to be intelligent. And to be capable of learning what can be learned. Capable of asking questions. Capable of maybe learning a lesson. To be doubting is all of that. Not a bad thing at all. But to be believing. Believing is to be living. The very fact that I believe tells me I live. Even if I don't believe that I live, even if I don't believe that I'm happy, even if I don't believe that I can be happy, the very fact that I'm believing something means that I'm living. You know, the foundational principle, Cartesian, I think, therefore I am. I'm believing something, so I must be living. And if I'm living, I can look to Jesus. If I've heard of Jesus, I can hope in him. Don't listen to whatever anyone else says about what you should believe or what you shouldn't believe. May your heart hear him. He's with you. He cares for you. May you be touched by his hand where you hurt, at your heart. May you have that moment where you can look at the wounded one, the one who gave you so much hope because you believed in him. And then it seems like he gave you so much hurt because he seemed to fail. May you see him as Thomas saw him, wounded. The one who had just gone through the darkness. The one who himself had just said, why am I forsaken? The one who cried and said, my God, may you say, my God. That's my God. That's my God. That's my God.